Just three ordinary people from the hills of eastern Kentucky. We don't have all the answers, but we do have all the questions. This is the Just Add Bourbon podcast with Jimmy Don, JD, and Don. And welcome everybody to the Just Add Bourbon podcast. I'm Jimmy Don Kerr.
I'm Don Giesica.
And I'm JD Dan. What's going on?
And it is another beautiful Sunday evening here in the hills of eastern Kentucky. Guys, what are we going to talk about this week?
Anything I have no idea.
Anything happened this week?
I might have a couple of things to say.
Don sent me and JD a text, said, I'm getting a picture of my uterus and I'm coming on.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Goodness sakes, what a week.
Yeah, so, obviously.
Did you tell everybody what I said in response?
No. No, I'm not.
Let's skip over that. Jimmy Don's such a professional.
I try to keep the PG going here, JD. I try to keep it PG. So, obviously we're going to get into the Roe v. Wade topic this week, of course. Before we do, as we always like to start our show, we kind of talk about our weeks. Miss Dawn, how has your week been?
Oh, it was good. We went down to Tennessee and stayed down there. You know, we had vacation and we wondered where we were going to go. But honestly, I don't know about traveling right now. Do you guys ever do that? You just don't know if you want to go anywhere or not. I couldn't pick any place. So we just hung out at the house and got to see the big kids. Well, I got to see the boys a lot. Reagan is always on the move. And then I have the baby with me here. I call her the baby, but she's 13. And then we're back in Kentucky today. But it was a good week.
Well, good. Mr. Dameron, looks like you're in a hotel. What are you doing?
I am. I'm in the Pigeon Forge. I'm come down to help the Alliance division down here. They had their local manager quit. So they need somebody, come down here and help them keep things rolling as they transaction to a new LM. So I'm coming down here to lend my expertise and my leadership abilities and see if we can help out. Last week I actually went to Missouri for some training. It was pretty cool. Alliance. Yeah. In Missouri and got to go out there and hang out with those guys and have some training. And this week they got me in the Pigeon Forge. So here we go.
Which is like not far from my house in Tennessee. I always say the Lord keeps me and JD separated because he knows me and JD and Todd will get together and whoop it up.
It's too much, right?
There might not be a podcast anymore. These two get together, get put in jail. It may just be the Jimmy Don show. I don't know.
Yeah, y'all have to stream from a prison somewhere.
Yeah. But
I knew I couldn't miss tonight. I knew I couldn't miss. Like I was racing my Google map down here to try to find a hotel to get set up so I could. Because we got to talk about this.
Oh, no doubt. My week's about the same, guys. I just work. You know how it is. I just work and do my thing.
And how are the girls? Are they busy?
Everybody's good. There's a lot going on. We're getting ready to take Addison to Rogers Explorers tomorrow. She'll be gone for we're taking her to Union College. She'll be gone for a couple of days. That one, which it's only one day we go without seeing her. We'll take her tomorrow, and then we go back and get her on Wednesday. Yeah. So. But she's looking forward to that. She, after Ashton had such a good time at Scholars, she's really looking forward to this. So excited for her. Yeah, no, for sure. Growing up and some, breaking news to us from Jason Rundle. The Cat's got the #1 point guard in the nation. Yes, sir.
Wow. Who was it? I haven't caught up with it yet.
Rundle, tell us who the name of the guy. I know I heard him talking about it the other day, but I'm not sure. I don't keep up with
I don't even care. I just want to win games. I want to win shits.
Right. I'm with you, JD.
I'm celebrating recruits, man.
Yeah, yes. I have to say I'm in agreement with JD on that. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited, but we always have these #1 classes, and then we get beat by St. Peter's. So I don't care who we have now. I want to win. Let's
win. All right, so we've wasted enough time. We're 5 minutes into this. So let's jump into the topic of the week, and we'll see if we can make a whole hour out of this. I bet we can. So obviously Roe v. Wade was overturned last week. We heard that may be coming about. It's been a month or two ago when it was leaked. A draft opinion was leaked, and that they were considering overturning Roe v. Wade. Yeah. And so, of course, that happened. There's been protests and social media has been alive with, I guess, just dissent in this opinion. And so we'll do our best to discuss it. Now, we want the audience. I am going to come to the audience questions and concerns tonight to discuss. Let JD and Don kind of, go back and forth on some things. I'm going to throw my opinion in as well. But we do want the audience to participate tonight and tell us what you think, because I think this is a complicated topic, JD, and it's one where I kind of see both sides. And so let's start with you and just your general reaction to Roe v. Wade being overturned.
Well, my first thought was, I can't think of a time that's good when you go to bed with less rights than you did when you woke up with. And, that's what our daughters and our sisters and our mothers and our good friends of the female gender did the other day. They went to bed with less rights than they had the day before. Less ability to make choice than they did the day before. And to me, it's a bad thing. We don't know. Nobody knows what's better for the family or any particular family than the people that are involved in the decision making. The mothers, nobody knows what's better for their family than the people involved. And I just think it's a bad precedent for the government to get involved and make decisions for families. And I think it's a sad day.
All right, Don, what about you?
Well, there's a lot to unpack, right? So we might as well just slow down and take our time on this one, because me, as a female, I was home, and it just so happened that I was helping Reagan load up for once she was getting ready to go on one of her trips. So when you have I've got two teenage daughters, one 19 and one 13. And when you have girls and you just happen to be with them at the moment that my phone gave me the alert. Did you guys get the alert? Is that how you all found out? It took me a second, and then I had to go to them, and I not Brooklyn because she's young, but with Reagan, I wanted to catch her before she was leaving. And I'm like, look, this is what happened. And I was about to cry. And she's like, what is going on, Mom? Are you happy or are you sad? And I'll be honest, it was a complete mix for me. And I don't care to put that out there. That's my opinion. I have a uterus. I know how these things go. I'm also healthcare. So for me, it was a complete mix. And I'll tell you why it was a mix. It's sad that, to me, them punting it back to the states, I told you guys before, that doesn't bother me, because I live in a state to where I work already politically. I'm already involved. My legislatures already know what I want and what I don't want. But I'm concerned about the states that go to the extreme right. And I'm also concerned about the states that go to the extreme left. I wish that everybody would just kind of settle down and use common sense on this. I don't think there's anyone in the room that would say that an 11-year-old girl who has been raped or molested or gotten pregnant somehow, some way, should be forced to carry a child. But there may be some people that do that, and those things are going to have to be worked through. Ectopic pregnancies, I saw a lot of that be posted, and there's a lot of truth there. So like I said, it was a mixed bag for me, because I also value the life of a baby. But I also think that there are several circumstances that allows a female to be able to determine if she is willing or even able to carry on without putting herself in danger. So it was a tough one, and it still is a tough one.
No, for sure. Like, for me, I actually agree with what both of you said, but my personal opinion on Roe v. Wade, I always believed that it was a bad law. Mm-hmm. I believed it wasn't something that was supposed to have been decided where it was decided. I believe that was always supposed to have been kicked down to the states. The Constitution, the original framers of our Constitution, are silent on abortion. Right? Maybe it wasn't such a big deal back then. You don't know. That was, hundreds of years ago. But they were silent on that, just as they were silent on quantum mechanics and quantum physics. So I always thought that it was a bad law, and I thought it should be at the state level. And so in that sense, I wouldn't say I'm happy about it, because I agree with what JD said. Anytime that you wake up and you have less rights than you did the day before, because I do not believe that the government should tell anybody what to do in any way. So I agree with what JD said, but I always felt like I'm also silent on quantum physics, Knox. But I believed that it should be at the state level.
Right.
So in that sense, I was okay with it because I felt like it was returning the onus to where it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So that's just the three of us kind of where, our initial reaction to it. So let's get into kind of the more controversial topics when it comes to this. So Don, I heard you mentioned the rape molestation part of it.
Right.
And so I looked up because that's where a lot of people go is they go to that rape.
But it's so tiny.
It's very minimal.
It's so tiny.
It's very minimal.
Yeah.
It's less than 2% of the reasons, for rape. And I believe that the majority of people, or what I read, was I'm not ready to have a kid. I can't afford a kid. I'm done having children. Like those are some of the reasons that were given.
Mm-hmm.
So, Don, let's start with you on the topic of the rape molestation. Like, where do you fall as far as the overall?
As far as like what do I think should, I think that would, God, I don't ever want to have to make that choice. That's a tough question for any woman and any mother. But to me, I don't see me advising my kids to allow that to go on. And I mean, my own mom's in the comments, and we're at odds on that because not so much with my girls at the age they are now, but I have actually seen 11-year-old girls come into the OB ward, and those are dangerous pregnancies. Let's just say they're high risk. Mm-hmm. They're just as dangerous as a lady who's coming in who's 30 and perfectly grown and has high blood pressure. The child could die because she is not fully ready for that, situation. So I think when you hear the left use all these extreme circumstances, rape and incest and things of that nature, it's just political theater. If abortion was so important to the Democrats, they have had several times to codify this. There has been plenty of times and they're in power right now. They could make a law right now. They could put it into law right now. But they're going to say they don't have the votes, but they had it when they pushed through Affordable Care Act. And the same for the Republicans. Everybody is using the abortion topic as political warfare. You have the right that uses it to go to the evangelical base, and that evangelical base, and I'm pro-life. I'm all about, the baby having a chance at its life and things like that. I just know, because I'm a realist, I know that there are going to be situations to where we have to look at the woman and go, you know what, Jimmy Don, she's hemorrhaging. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to lose both of them, or do you want me to pick one of them? Those are situations that I don't want to make a decision, but for anybody, I want them to be able to have that freedom to make the decision. So, like I said, this abortion thing, it's a lot to unpack, and we might be here all night. And everybody throw your comments in, because none of us really know. But I'm telling you, when it comes to me, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm glad that my life hasn't ended up that way. But if I was to have some type of situation like that and it threatened my life and I'm on the table, I can't tell you if Todd doesn't, save me and in order to keep me alive. I mean, these are real situations that do happen.
Sure. JD, just kind of your either pushback on that or just your take on what was just said.
Oh, well, there's a lot there, but I'll give it a whirl. First off, about Democrats codifying laws to make abortion, a federal mandate or whatever, or federally protected. They tried that earlier this year, and the same guy who continues to push back on everything the Democrats try to get through did it again. It was the Manchin vote that stopped it from happening. So we may have all the D's, but we don't have the numbers. So we don't have any R's coming over to help out women at all. So there's blame on both sides of the aisle for that as well. I still stand where I stood, 10 years ago. We, like I said, at the beginning of this podcast, we don't need the government to make our decisions in our lives. If it comes to saving a mother's life, if it comes to saving, whatever it is, whatever the circumstance is, a woman shouldn't have to answer that question. It's none of anybody else's business. That's my opinion. Well, she's going through med school. She gets pregnant, and that's going to derail her going to school and becoming somebody. Now she's caught in a system where and that does happen a lot. It does derail careers. It derails education. Derails getting out of a circumstance where you're being abused. So we may say those things are, small percentages, but that's not true, because there's a lot of women in different situations, maybe not rape, but a place where they're escaping a life that they've tried to leave behind, and then they get caught down with a child, get pregnant with a child, and now they're anchored to where they've always been. That's not our decision to make, guys. That's that woman's decision to make. Sure. So, like I said, I'm sad that we woke up. My daughter woke up with less, or went to bed with less rice than she woke up with the other day. And I'm not even for myself. I would never ever. And she goes back to Don was talking about the alcohol question. COVID, I'm not a drinker, so I wouldn't vote for alcohol. Well, it ain't got nothing to do with you. I would never have an abortion, but it's not my. I would never push what I think's right or my opinion on other people's lives, and that's why I am pro-choice.
Right. And
let me ask this question, Don. Or actually, go ahead, Don. Say what you want to say.
Well, and that's why I like to see it back to the states. So that didn't bother me that they kicked it back to the states, because I'm in agreement with you. I think it was a flawed law. It's been under attack for 50 years. And once they put that precedent in place, then you saw blue states take it to the extreme. And that's why we're here. That's why you have the anti-abortion fighting the pro-choice, because everybody goes too far. Now that it's at the state level, you should be able, as a person, as a voter, to be able to talk to your legislatures, pick who you want to vote for, and let your elected officials determine how the state that you live in is going to handle your abortion rights. Because we've solely only spoke on my right as a woman. You have to remember, 50% of this country believes that the child also has a right, because that's a separate heartbeat, separate brain. They need me as an incubator, and that's it. I had tons of choices before I was impregnated, tons. And we've never even gotten to the man's role either. So, when it comes to JD saying we woke up with less rights, that's not true. In some states, they actually woke up. Some states. In plenty of states, all the blue states, they're actually, but you'll have to handle that on the state level now. And same with
which
mine.
Is why that's why it's a bad law, because it took away people's choice. Now people live in Kentucky don't have that choice.
It took away abortion on demand.
Right.
Okay, let's all be clear. It took away abortion on demand.
Right.
It put us in. I'm sorry, you can jump in anytime. It put us in the mainstream with European countries. I mean, there are plenty of countries out there that have mandates or laws in place that you can have an abortion up until X number of weeks. And that's where we are in this country. So that when the feds pull it out, they're like, hey, y'all are going to have to figure this out. So for Tennessee, I think we're going to go down really low. Like you said, JD, we're going to kind of be there with Kentucky. But I think Kentucky's went way, I haven't got to read up because I've been traveling, but I think Kentucky's like, you're completely outlawed up here.
No,
right?
And that's not the case, because I've actually been reading the Kentucky
that's
law.
What
we don't know what's going to happen.
That's what I'm seeing up here.
Go ahead, JD.
We know what's going to happen. We know that the poor states, the poorly educated states, are going to outlaw this and force their women to stay at home and do what they've always done. That's what's going to happen. Instead of promoting these women and getting them a choice, they're going to keep them barefoot and pregnant. That's what they're going to do.
So let me say this real quick. So I went and looked at Kentucky's law, and it's basically the abortion on demand. You cannot do that. That is outlawed now. Right. You cannot do that. But in the cases of medical emergency, there are some cases with rape and incest. Mm-hmm. There's steps that you have to go through in order to do that. Counseling, you have to go through an ultrasound. There's other things. But the fact that you can't do anything if it was a medical emergency, that Kentucky state law does not say that. Kentucky state law says that if it's a medical emergency, there are different criteria in which you can do that. But the abortion on demand is not. Now, JD, here, let me push back on this for just a second, okay? Because this is something that I hear a lot, and Don said it, was that there are choices to be made. There were plenty of choices made prior to getting to that point.
Sure.
So why is that not focused on more? Is okay, look, you had to make a choice to do what you did to
Sure.
get pregnant. And then you have a choice after you find out you're pregnant, you have a choice the next morning with the morning after pill. You have a choice up to that point. But why is that not focused on more? Is the choices up to that point?
I mean, that should be focused on more, man, honestly. But the plain and simple matter is this. I have never, ever mourned over a aborted baby. You want to know why? Because it's never, ever affected me. So it's none of my business. What these families do with their lives and what that woman does with her uterus is not any bearing on me at all.
Actually, I had a girl that, that I know. I have several, but I almost went too far on that one anyway. I have one that I was overseeing as a supervisor many years ago. Anyway, she had 3 abortions in 2 years. And that really, I was always, I'm not ashamed to say I was raised Christian. I believe that. I'm a hook, line, and sinker, but I don't want to push my beliefs on anyone. I get what, because I'm a libertarian, you all know that, so I don't want to push anything on anyone. That's why I also say that when people are in certain situations like the medical emergencies or a young child, I'm open to those. I can see that having to be a conversation between the child or the woman and their doctor. But abortion on demand, I'm never going to go for. This particular girl who I knew, she did do abortion on demand. And she traveled to do it. And then the other 2 times she did it in Tennessee. And the last one that she did, it was a baby girl. That's how far along she made it. And they laid it on the table. That she didn't do a chemical. It's too far. So she couldn't do a chemical abortion where you take the pill. She came back and told us about it. And she said they laid it on the table. She was distraught because it would have been her only baby girl. She was never the same ever. And she said that. This is not my opinion. This is her saying that one did me in. So we have got so many things, like I said at the beginning of the show, to unpack on this. This does not need to be a political fight. Everything we do is this crisis culture that we live in. Everything's a crisis. JD said we woke up the other day with less rights. And I had one of my friends actually said that to me, JD. And she's like, how do you feel waking up today with less rights? You know where I was? I was at the swimming pool at the country club, watching my kid. I didn't feel like I woke up with any less rights than what I did the day before. But to lots of women, they're really freaked out over this. And I wonder why. I mean, honestly, we're not having abortions every day. And JD, you can jump in, but honestly, as a female, I can promise you, we are not having abortions every month.
Oh, I know that.
It's all about, I think it's the slippery slope. I'm sorry.
Of course it is.
I think it's a slippery slope to where people are worried about what's to come next.
Right, because the problem is this, Don, that having abortions and allow legal abortions is not bad policy. You know what it is? It's against our ideal Christianity. That's what it is. And that's the problem. Because how far down this hole do we have to go? Who gets, we get some fundamentalists on that Supreme Court to get a couple more on there, and we're going to go be a handmaid's tale. That's what we're going to be. And women are going to have any rights. So it is a slippery slope. You're right.
We outnumber you guys by around 5 million in this country. So we can handle this based solely on the female vote. And we don't. And you want to know why? Because a lot of women are not abortion on demand women. They're not. Most of them are.
I think the reason is because a lot of women defer to their husband when it comes to politics, and they just vote the way he votes, and even if it's against their own
yeah. And I will give you that because of where we sit. I will give you that because if you guys are listening to this, JD and I and Jimmy Don are from a very conservative region. Am I not correct, boys?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it has a lot of misogyny and a lot of patriarchy, and he's right. So, and that's what he sees. Now, because I've moved around and lived in the city, I don't see those women. Like half of my friends are liberals, several are progressives, and we think on our own. But so I can give her take on that. I do think that women need to realize that we have a brain, we can think on our own, we can do what we need to for our own selves, and men need to back off of that in certain regions. But when it comes to aborting babies, we have plenty of choices before we ever get pregnant. And I don't like and I'm sure you guys have seen them, the post about keeping your legs spread. It's always put on us. How come I've seen that? How many times have you guys read that? Keep your legs together. Don't spread your legs. I've seen that a million times since Friday. Nobody ever says anything about you guys not getting off. I mean, there's things that you all can do too.
The point I'm getting at is we need a separation of church and state, because there's no way this is a good policy when you looked at the numbers. When you look at the numbers, what you see is...
This has nothing to do with religion.
Of course it does. Because as policy, it's not good policy because I'm glad you asked. Because when women, first off, the number one most expensive thing you'll ever do is raise a child. And so if you're in a predicament where you can't afford to raise that child and you get pregnant, you stay in that predicament for life. You may, if you're born in the bottom 10%, you're likely to die there. If you're born in the upper 10%, you're likely to die there. That's because
But how is them overturning it about religion?
Because what else is it about? Why is it good policy other than religion?
I mean, because the same could be the reverse. I mean, honestly, is it because the justices are Catholic? That's what I keep hearing from the Democrats. Because the justices are Catholic, that's why this is overturned. Every time that we have something that the left doesn't agree with, honestly, they cherry pick a lot of things. Because you don't agree. Because you don't agree with this, it should be legal all the time.
It's not because I don't agree with it, because it is what it is.
No, but
because you can't put the policy and say this is why abortion should be illegal by the numbers. You can't do it.
Right. Abortion is still abortion is still accessible. Birth control is accessible. Abstinence is accessible. All of these things that you can do to curb an unwanted pregnancy are completely still on the table. The argument is because the case that they took before the Supreme Court was from Mississippi, and they wanted to know, can we abort a baby past 15 weeks? That's where they wanted to fight. And that's where the argument is. Where do we want to draw the line? Well, when you go to some blue states, they don't want to draw a line. They want you to be able to have abortion on demand at any time. And that is why we are where we're at. If we could go right down the middle, the majority of people, it's a slim margin, but the majority of people believe that abortion should be legal. And we are all in agreement with that, correct? On some level, we think on some level, we think abortion should be legal. Everybody agrees with that. Where me and Jimmy Don stand, it sounds like, don't let me speak for you, Jimmy Don. It sounds like where we stand, we think it should be legal more on a medical emergency, up to a certain timeline, gestational week, that type of legal. Where you stand, JD, is it should be legal at any time that the pregnancy becomes a burden to the woman, correct?
No, I'm not a big fan of late-term abortions. I don't want to get that twisted.
Yeah.
But I do think that this shouldn't be anybody else's decision. That's what I think.
Well, no, and I read a statistic that it said 80% of Americans believe in some form of abortion. Mm-hmm. And what that means is up to, because I don't think what happened with Roe V Wade is a issue of Christianity. I think it's an issue of the Supreme Court correcting something that should have never been decided where it was decided to begin with.
Right.
They had the nerve and the numbers to get it back to where it's supposed to be is the states. I do not think it's a matter of Christianity. Now, the debate that's had a lot of times is about Christianity. It's people who go to church and they, they're like, oh, it's murder and you can't do that. But I bet if you talk to those same people and listen to what they have to say, that the majority of them agree with some form of what Don said. It's up to a certain point. Like for me, once it has a heartbeat, once there's a heartbeat, then that is a being. That is a person. It may just be a clump of cells with a heartbeat, but it's going to grow into a person. And that's kind of where I am when it comes to rape and incest and things like that. It's going to grow into
a person, but it's not yet.
Say what now?
So it's a clump of cells with a heartbeat that's going to grow into a person, but it's not yet. Okay.
It is still a person. It has a heartbeat.
So right now it's still the mother's body, though. It's still the mother's body. The mother dies, the baby dies too.
Once that becomes, it is the mother's body, correct?
So
but Don said it's an incubator.
I think what he's trying to say.
Why should anybody be able to tell any mother what to do with their body? I just don't understand that.
Well, and remember this, JD, and remember to our listeners, we start from different gates. Okay. Me and you start from different gates. I'm representing the right side on this. You're representing the left. The problem with it is I represent a little bit of a libertarian view too, because I'm with you on it's not anybody's business up to a certain point. And then that's where I swing back red. Because when you're talking about, like you said, you're not for late-term abortion, that's debatable in people's minds. Some people will say late-term abortion is 32 plus weeks. Some people will say that it is 20 plus weeks. Some people will say 15. Some say 12. Yeah. So, I think about 12 weeks. Because sometimes with the heartbeat bill, a lot of times your periods are late. Like some women don't even have periods that are regular, and it might be late and you may not even know you're pregnant. Like that's a whole thing. I know y'all might think I'm crazy because I talk about my period on here all the time. Well, mine comes like clockwork, but not everybody's does. So if I missed mine, I would catch my pregnancy pretty quick. I'd catch it probably in 5 weeks, depending on my hormone level. But some women may not literally catch it until 8, 9, maybe even 10 weeks, like no joke. So
when does it, don't mean to interrupt you, but like when does the heartbeat come? Because like to me, when there's a heartbeat, that means it's alive.
It's around 6 weeks. Yeah. So
before most women think they're pregnant.
But what I'm saying is a lot.
But that's fair. Yeah. That's actually a fair point because I like in my mind, it's always been once it has a heartbeat, it's alive. But if you can't catch it that quick, then maybe that's why the 15-week thing is reasonable. I could get on board with that.
And then I'm going to back it up because remember, there's a ton to unpack. I keep saying that. So now let's back up again. I also know that I'm sexually active and that if my period is not coming around or if I feel a little sick to my stomach or my body feels off, I would probably check. See, we've gotten into this mindset to where we make so many excuses for why women should be able to have abortions on demand. And in reality, we have tons of choices before we ever even get down that road. And we haven't even started touching the man's role in this. So back to the ultimate. Do we all believe that abortion in some ways should be legal? That's a yes. Now, just like what you're seeing on this podcast is what you're going to see in your states. They're going to go back and they're going to debate on when it should be illegal, correct? And then what circumstances. And that's why you better get in on your local and state politics.
So then you give me the point that women are going to be forced to have babies they may not want. Is that right?
If they're going to have a certain time period to get rid of it. And then after that,
So I still haven't heard anybody put into words why it's good policy to force women to do something with their own body. You still haven't given me a good argument of why it's not. Because it derails families and dreams and hopes and education. That's why.
So does a loss of a job or a bad medical diagnosis.
That's nobody's business either. That's nobody's business either.
Argument, I've heard that argument a million times, and they're like, well, we can't make
we
can't make the parents take care of the kids. Do you know how many kids we have in the foster system?
About 750,000.
Are we supposed to just go wipe them out too because their life isn't going to be great because their mom and dad didn't take care of them?
No, we should do better.
There has to be.
But that doesn't mean we answer the pool.
There has to be adult responsibility, and that's where we're failing. Honestly, it really is.
What you're saying is $750,000 kids in adoption pool isn't enough. We need to have more. Because
no. What I'm saying,
have kids they don't want, right?
Yeah, there is. No. What I'm saying, and what you're wanting to ignore, is the responsibility on adults. You don't want these adults to have any consequences. You just get out and just F.
There are consequences, Don. That's what my whole point was. You're not listening. The whole point I said was because the point is there are consequences. That means they're now going to have to drop out of college. They're going to drop out of high school. They're going to get stuck on welfare.
That's terrible.
Yeah, that's terrible. Absolutely.
Honestly.
And then we're going to complain about them being stuck on welfare.
And what happens to the guy? What happens to the guy in all this?
I don't know. Nothing right now. Nothing right now.
Guys? Nothing ever happens. So we can shoot that over there. That's what I'm saying. Quit making the
responsibility of the abortion doesn't fall on the man as much as you want it to. It just doesn't because it's the woman's body, not the man's.
Okay. If I hold my breath, I cannot impregnate myself. Like I literally can't. I have to have some seed. Us girls, we're going to have some seed. That's how this happens. And I want to know why you all can just sling seed everywhere And then we're the ones that has to drop out of college. We're the ones that have to do this. We're the ones that have to do that. Because I am in agreement with you, JD, but I'm not such a weak vessel to where I think, oh, I'm pregnant now, so now I have to drop out of college. Now I have to do these things. Do you know how many women, I mean, that's offensive to us. Do you know how many women are mothers and they are able to go to school, they're able to work, they're able to do all these things?
Great, do you know how many women drop out of school because of those same things? And then lose jobs and careers because of those same things?
Right off the bat, when I lay down, I have the choice. And let me tell you, when I'm having sex with a man, he has a choice too. So we both, as adults, know what we're doing. That's how I have sex. I don't just go out, have sex, and just hump anything walking by me. And then when I get pregnant, I'm effing shocked. That's not how this shit works. It's completely different.
Got nothing to do with nothing. What you're on.
And that way, and no, it has everything to do with this. Everything to do with this, because we are making babies. And once we make babies, we actually decide, oh, this is not going to settle in with my life or your life. Let's just go and kill it at 28 weeks. That is not something that people want to have a part in. They don't.
Okay.
You're not talking about my psyche. You're not talking about
I'm not talking about 28 weeks. I know, but okay, go ahead.
20 weeks, whatever you're comfortable with me saying. 15, I think is what you said earlier. Whatever, because 15's pretty long down the line. I mean, you're in your second trimester, okay? So some people would say that's late.
Sure. Some people say 6 weeks is late. So go,
That's right. So that's where I'm trying to say too, going back to this, when you start at a different gate and a different foundation, we're always going to disagree, because I think that once we get pregnant. Sure. Okay.
Let me get in right there for a second, because that's my whole point, right? Is we all start in a different situation. And just because you were able to do that and you have the support system around you, everybody doesn't have that, Don. You're speaking from a different perspective. Your perspective isn't everybody's perspective. And I know you know all these strong women, but I know women who ain't strong who need the support. So that's the difference. You know,
I guarantee every woman,
everybody's not as strong as I am.
Every woman that you know is a strong woman. What you're talking about is class. You're talking about one might have money, one might not have money. Every female is strong enough to have a baby.
Not even only that. They might have supportive parents.
Privilege.
It ain't about class.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Privilege, class, and support system. But all of that. I get what you're saying. However, and we do have things in place. Now, you're going to say we don't have enough, but we do have things in place.
I think when they get stuck
we have
there.
a welfare. They do. And but we also have places. We also have things in place to get them out of that too. We know plenty of people who stood in the government cheese line, back in the day, and they went to college. They're entrepreneurs.
This should be fine for everybody then.
They've done plenty of things that dig themselves up.
My grandmother,
the numbers say they're going to get stuck there. That's just what they say.
So because they're going to get stuck there, we're supposed to just let them have abortions left and right?
Yeah, I mean, of course. Why not? If that's their choice, we should.
At what point do you think do you ever think the baby has any right on it, any chance at life on its own? Do you ever think it deserves anything at any point in the gestational period?
No, they don't have any rights.
Okay, so there you just killed your first argument, because you said at 15 weeks you'd be okay with abortion, but now you're saying they don't have any rights at all. So you're for sure you don't think that the baby has any rights all the way up until the day it's delivered.
Not any given by the Constitution. Absolutely not.
Right. That's why they overturned Roe, because none of this is in the Constitution. It's to the
state.
What I'm saying is, there, we just ended
according to the Constitution, the baby doesn't have any rights, because it's not even addressed in the Constitution, right?
Yeah. Abortion,
so what I'm saying is, I'm just making my point is that we can do all we want to, but the problem is the baby doesn't have any rights according to the Constitution, because it's not even addressed.
We have the right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness if you're a human being. Babies are actual human beings, and babies can live outside of the mother past a certain gestational period. And that's where all of the states are going to have to determine. So I live in the state of Tennessee. That's where I'm keeping my residency for now, unless I flip out and come back up to Kentucky full time. And I don't mean that offensively. I'm happy in Tennessee and my kids in school down there. But in the state of Tennessee, we'll probably do the heartbeat bill, and then we're going to do we do the heartbeat bill, and then we're going to do, like Jimmy Don said, medical exemptions for medical emergencies and so forth and so on. And then after that, you've made your decision beforehand. The baby is yours. And then people will go, well, are you going to take care of it afterward? We have plenty of things in place, but you've still made your choice. So, I mean, that's just how it is with this abortion thing.
You messed up for 5 minutes and you got to pay your lifetime for it. There you go.
Well, but here's the thing. Like, okay, this kind of goes back to like my grandmother, for example. My grandmother, my grandfather, my biological grandfather, died before my grandmother even knew that she was pregnant with my dad. All right. And she was essentially a single mom. She already had one son, and she could have made the choice to do that, and I wouldn't be here right now.
Right.
But what she chose to do instead is she used the system that Don said that's in place, the welfare system, food stamps. She put herself through college. She became a teacher. And she would tell you that it was hard. And there were times that she wasn't sure even then if she made the right decision. And she was one of the most devout Christians that I knew.
Right.
But she would even tell you at times going through it, she wasn't sure. But it was the best decision she ever made for her life. And she said it wasn't easy. She had to put herself through college. She worked. You know, she had no support system either. Right. It can be done, is what I'm saying. But to me, it all comes back to the choice at the beginning. And I believe it's the choice of the woman and the man. Mm-hmm. They choose to have sex. When you have sex, if you don't know this, you can have a baby. Right. So it's basically, the guy needs to take responsibility for himself. Mm-hmm. If he's not interested in having a kid, wrap it up. The woman, if she's doing that, be on birth control. You know, there's a lot of different ways to do it. That to me is where the choice is. Now, I am open to the 15 weeks thing, because like I said, to me, it was always, if there's a heartbeat, it's alive. Right. It has a soul. It is alive. Mm-hmm. But if you can't find out that,
see what we just said there?
Do what now?
See what you just said there? It has what?
It's alive.
It's alive. Yeah, go ahead.
It does have a soul. What do you mean it doesn't have a soul? If you're a baby, you have a soul, dog. I mean,
that's why you feel. That's why you feel.
That is how I feel.
So that's your religion again. That's why it always comes back to religion.
It has nothing to do with it.
Right. But JD, you're the party of science. You know, the party of science.
What do you mean it has nothing to do with it?
It has a consciousness.
And you guys are denying the heartbeat.
Okay,
I mean, honestly.
I know what you meant. You didn't mean consciousness. You didn't mean consciousness.
Right. It does have a soul. No, I 100% meant it had a soul, JD. Right. And I won't be judged because I feel that way. But I'm not going to. It has nothing to do with, dude. I am not religious. It is. I am not that religious. I don't go to church. I don't do that. I still believe that everybody has a soul. Once you are born, that's your consciousness. It is a soul. That's why they can't recreate babies. You can't. So scientifically, it doesn't matter.
I believe that babies have souls, and let me go ahead and clarify that does not alter my opinion on abortion in the least, because I'm also a girl that works in the sciences, healthcare field, and I'm telling you, if something has a heartbeat, that represents life, and in my world, in my mind, that means I'm supposed to try to protect it, nurture it, and grow it. And for the people who say, are we supposed to take care of all these kids and stuff like that? Honestly, adults have got to make their own decisions. We are not tripping over sticks in the front yard and getting knocked up. That's not how this works. Guys are slinging their seed left and right. Women are accepting it, and then you're getting pregnant. It's different if you've got tons of birth control on deck and you've done everything you can and you get pregnant and the baby has some type of viability problem, or you're having medical issues. Everybody's in agreement that I know of that those things can be looked at. So now what we need to argue is, at what line do we draw in the sand for when it is not okay to kill the baby? And that's where the states are going to be fighting this out. Maybe Oklahoma or somebody like that, you can't have an abortion even if you're hemorrhaging, but that has not been the case. I have not seen that, not one time. Have you guys? Now correct me.
No, and that's something I actually wanted to ask is everybody was freaking out. And I get it, on certain side, I get why they were upset. But at the same time, the right to go get an abortion has not been taken away. Maybe it's harder in our state.
Maybe do it. It definitely is.
But it's harder. but you can still go do it.
Yeah, but Jim,
You know, I mean, you can go to a state.
Again, you're talking from a point of privilege. It may be harder, but you can go do it. But what if you're 11 years old and live in Arkansas? Is it harder now, or is it impossible?
Right. Now they're supposed to be looking on those and making those medical emergencies, but now I don't know if they will. You're right, JD. They may not. So let's take his side for a minute.
I want to talk about something real quick though. We talk about late term abortions because that's the play that the right always wants to play. They want to say, "Oh, late term abortions are so bad." This and the other. 1% of late term abortions. 1% of abortions. Let's see, 7% of all abortions happen between 13 and 17 weeks, and everything after that's 1% of all abortions. So that's less than the 1.5 that we're talking about on the other side about rape and all that stuff.
13 to 17 weeks is when you see people having gender reveal parties. That's when people start telling their family. Those, I'm just saying, those are absolutely can be considered later term because you actually know the sex. You went down the road with it. You know what I mean? So because of that 13 to 17 weeks, that's why you get such a polarized topic because people, to me, 17 weeks is a late term abortion.
Yeah,
that's really late.
Even at that, we're talking about 7%.
Right.
13 to 17. So that's
right. So I
many.
think like most European countries, I think are 12 weeks, and you've got 12 weeks to figure it out what you're going to do, and then you need to, do it.
Let me address a couple of these comments because Amanda's saying if you're 11 and live in Arkansas, take a morning after pill and don't do it again. Again, Amanda, you're being 11 years old and going to your mom or dad saying, "Hey, mom, I had sex this weekend. I need to go get a plan B." That'd be hard to do. That's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah, I would think that an 11-year-old is probably
a point of privilege here.
Well, I think an 11-year-old would probably be getting raped by her uncle or something. In all honesty,
absolutely. And it's hard to speak about, right? It's hard. First off, it's hard to say I'm pregnant. It's definitely hard to say I'm pregnant by my uncle or my dad or whatever.
Yeah. So really,
put yourself in 11-year-old from Arkansas shoes. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. So I mean, the abortion thing. That's where I'm at on it. I'm hoping that my state does what we need to do to protect women as much as we can and make it keep it accessible for the ones that need it. But other than that, we're all going to have to be responsible for what we do with our bodies. So
and like I said, I think with the statistic I read, this was a recent statistic, said that 80% of Americans, Christian or not, agree that some form of abortion should be the medical, the early abortion, all that stuff. Most people agree because to me, that's common sense.
Right.
It's those things are common sense. You should not, like JD has said, have your life ruined over one bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. You don't have to make the decision that got you there first, but then there are some things in place for you to make that decision early on. And then if you make that decision, okay, that's fine. And then you move on with your life. That's fine. But if you get past a certain point, it is what it is. You made the decision. Now you have to deal with it. And you're either going to live and raise that child and struggle, or you're going to give it up for adoption.
Right.
Even when we're talking about late term abortion, I have still never mourned for a fetus that's been aborted because it's never been any of my business what these families decide to do. That's the period.
I've mourned for babies that have been aborted, and I've mourned for the mothers who've had to abort them. I've got plenty of friends who have had abortions. Only 3 of them, I think, have had abortions because it would have derailed their life or because they made a bad decision with a bad guy. And those were hard abortions on them. They all had a hard time. Where honestly, the reason why women are not on Facebook talking about their abortions, other than the people with blue hair or whatever, is because these are very hard procedures. You never pass a birthday. As soon as you find out you're pregnant, you count up when you think you might be due, and then that rolls around year after year after year. And they say, I always wonder what would have been. These are hard decisions. That's why we need to talk about sex on the front end. And we need to do what we can to make sure that birth control remains accessible. And that's where, one of the liberal justices said that we need to watch birth control access and, gay marriage and all those things. I'm interested in how all of these things. Yeah, that's where my concerns are.
Gay marriage is next.
Yeah, I want to see where everything is going because, none of this stuff is in the Constitution, right? So, but it could be.
Well,
I want to be.
think
I want to.
it kind of is. So.
I want to be clear. This stuff could be. You've had, if abortion was so important to the Democrat Party, they could have codified it when President Obama and them did Affordable Care Act. They could do it right now, regardless. They have the D's, like JD said, but they don't have the votes. Not our problem. You still have the power. You could do it.
The Republicans could still vote with them if they want to, though. But you're right. Go ahead.
We could, but our base didn't scream for it. See, our base is fine. Our base is fine with cutting it off at 12 weeks. Some of them are even good at cutting it off at 6 weeks.
Well, no, if you're talking about 80%, Don, then your base is not fine. Because we're talking about 80% of people. So your base is not.
No, 80%.
80% are okay with the early stuff.
With the very early stuff,
right.
Okay? But that's 80% collectively. So when you split that in half, I guarantee you it's probably more like 60-20.
I know you're talking about it is 60-40 actually.
My point is the outrage is what they want. They want you to be outraged. If you're that outraged and your party is in control, why is your party not making this into law?
They try because they don't have the one vote they need. Because Nixon's got more power than the president right now.
Right. Well, work on it. That's not our problem, right?
It's definitely your problem. If you're a woman, it's your problem. For sure.
No, it's not mine because I'm responsible. I'm not saying that people are not responsible, but there's a lot of irresponsible men and women out there having plenty of sex and then running out and getting abortions. I'm not one of those.
Right. But you're a woman with daughters who have less choice now.
But if I needed one, I've got daughters each with a uterus, and I have my uterus. I could get pregnant. And with me being in my 40s now, it could become a medical emergency for me. And in my state, I might have to fight like hell to get it done in order to keep myself alive. I'm not stupid. I think about all these things. And that's why I've already flew off a few emails to my legislature, making sure that we are protected. My body needs to be protected just as much as the baby that I carry. I'm in total agreement on that.
So I have a question. It was something that Jason Rundle said earlier, and it's not something we've touched on, but I said, well, that's an interesting question. So if you've got a guy and a girl, and
I love this question. I'm ready.
We find out that the girl is pregnant and the girl wants to have an abortion, but the guy does not.
Oh, okay.
What right does the guy have in that scenario?
Oh yeah, that's true, Don. I think Sherry Castles need to be put up there because that's true.
What?
The majority of abortions aren't used for birth control. That's not.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's a USA Today article that I read.
There's mostly used for birth control.
100%. That's exactly what it says.
No, there's actual data. So
there's data that backs that up.
I want to see it. Probably that.
Go ahead about. And I'll take it even further. Okay. Most of that data that they use abortions for birth control because the baby would derail their life in some way. That's using abortion for birth control. It targets the most vulnerable populations. Most of all the Planned Parenthoods, none of them are in the ritzy areas. They're targeting people of color. They're targeting the poor. So yeah,
because they don't want to get trapped in the system. They've already been in for years and years. That makes all the sense in the world. Because the people who need them, the most vulnerable need the access the most. Absolutely.
Okay, that's a whole nother argument on how all that started, JD. My point is, and JD's point is, data is data. Once a woman becomes pregnant, if she has a reason for an abortion to be done medically, everybody's in agreement on that. That's where that whole 80% comes in. I don't think there's anybody that would sit and watch a mother bleed out and let her and the baby both die. I just don't believe that for a minute. But Lord have mercy, there's some crazy, extreme right out there that might come up with it, just like there's some crazy extreme left that will come up with it and pop off over here and want to kill a baby at 38-week gestation. That's why we're constantly watching. Yeah, that's why we're constantly watching Roe be attacked year after year after year, is because we had this pro-life bunch go after this pro-choice bunch constantly because they're two extremes. So we have to ask ourselves as reasonable people, why are these parties so extreme on this? because of power. They could write this into law if they really worried about us women. Things would be written into law to help us left and right. But right now, all we're doing is we're having babies, and then we're sitting around wondering if we're going to have to fight over the next child support check, wondering if the dad's going to come visit on the weekend. Are you going to pick them up on time? Are you not going to pick them up on time? Are you going to come to the soccer game or whatnot? I'm tired of this being force-fed that you care about women. Nobody cares about women. Hell, half the women don't care about the other half of women. Period.
Yeah. Did you guys hear my question about what right
Sorry.
the guy had? It's all right. Did you guys hear my question about?
You want to hear about the other?
It's her body, bro. You don't have a choice. You don't get no choice.
He doesn't get a choice at all.
I don't think
Okay.
so.
Yeah. No. That came up, and I was wondering. I was like, "That's an interesting point." Does the guy
He
have
doesn't
any
get
say
the decisions
whatsoever?
over her body.
Yeah.
But if he said, "Hey, look,"
hooking up with,
no,
could
but
you
I'm
imagine
just
hooking up with
saying
somebody
is,
one night stand and getting her pregnant, and then you're trying to make her have an abortion or not have an abortion? Get out of here.
no, I could not. But if I said, "Hey, yeah, I got you pregnant. I would raise this kid myself. I will raise the kid. You don't have to have anything to do with it, but I want to raise the child."
Haven't we had a couple of those go to court? They never made it to the Supreme Court, though, but one got real close, didn't he? It was a guy, and he got a girl pregnant, and he wanted to keep the child, but she wanted to abort it, and I believe she ended up aborting it. But, yeah, I mean, those are interesting points. I don't know if there's going to be a big,
That's an extreme.
So let's just be honest. Let's just be honest about how much a man.
How much what?
He locked up on this side. Or can you see him, Don?
He's not moving. He's completely
No,
frozen.
he
Might be aborted.
What did he? Did you hear him?
No, he's frozen up on my side.
Am I here?
No, there you are. You're back.
You're back.
My back?
Yeah, you're back.
I said I want to talk about how much a man really has to do with making a baby. It's
it's a fair point. But I
just don't think there's a lot of them.
It's just that extreme case. I just saw that. And I thought, that's interesting.
And they always use this case too about if a woman gets killed and she's pregnant, there's 2 murders. Yeah, because she didn't choose that. It's not even the same thing, man. We're not even talking about the same thing.
So I do want to ask you this, JD, because I saw this meme. I don't know why I thought of you. I think of you when I see these things. And so I saw this meme, and it was basically like a person, and it said liberal. Okay. And it said, gun control debate. We have to take care of our children, or we have to take care of the children.
Sure.
And then it went around, flipped the switch in the back of their head, and said abortion debate. It's not about the children. And right. I saw that, and I thought, well, okay, that's an interesting point as well. As far as it is, and I understand these children are already here. And
because one's wanted and one's not wanted. That's easy.
Yeah. So, Don, do you think that too? Do you think it's an interesting flip-flop on the liberal side, or is that just normal right-wing?
I think there's so much, theater right now and virtue signaling that I can't even tolerate it. I mean, do we need to protect children at school? 100%.
Of course.
But, the Second Amendment is in the Constitution, and I don't know why that's hard to understand. It's part of it, and that's why it's got certain protections, and that's why abortion doesn't. However, abortion could have more protections if the powers that be would put it into law, but they have not done that and will not. Well, they might try to do it. You never know. They have till November.
Well, and for sure, the people, this is the other thing I hear all the time, which is partly true. Again, it's virtue signaling, but it's true, is that, we are here and getting to debate this topic. Mm-hmm. Why? Because we were born. And these, children that are aborted every year will never get to have this debate. And, that's virtue signaling in itself, but there is some truth to it as well.
I mean, yeah, but so again, I've never mourned over a baby aborted that I didn't know or didn't know their mother or didn't care about, because it's not my problem. It's not my place. It's not.
Believe me,
right on anybody else. What I think to be right on anybody else. Believe
me, we know it ain't a man's problem. I mean, we got that 100%. You all just, blow a nut and then you go about your life. And that right there, we have got to talk about too. We've got to talk about why is it that they stir and whip up the female masses, and we're protesting and we're screaming at each other, and we never look at men. We never look at it. Never look at it.
I got to talk about this because I've heard this and it drives me crazy. Your mommy was pro-life. You can be pro-choice and not have an abortion.
Yeah,
You can be
of course.
pro-choice and not have an abortion. You can believe. I think it's fine for somebody to open carry, but I don't do that. So my mom is pro-life, but that ain't why she had me. She had me because she planned me. But you can disagree and not want to participate in a policy and still back up your right to do it. So
Yeah, actually,
I just heard people say that, like,
yeah, I have to.
Oh, your mom was pro-life, you wouldn't be here. Well, that's not necessarily true. I'm pro-choice and I've got kids.
Yeah, I'm glad that my mom had me, and because I was the last baby of 4, and I think I may have been a surprise. And I'm glad that she had me. I don't think that mom's pro-life, so I don't think that even went through her mind. But it may have had the pregnancy went wild, and that's where we have to stay focused on. So remember, before they try to get you to launch war with your neighbor probably agrees that abortion on some level is okay with medical, problems and things like that popping up. Don't listen to all this stuff to where they're saying that you have no access to nothing and you're going to die out in the streets. That's just not, it's just not coming to true. Yeah.
It could be true for some people.
Well,
if they don't make it right and get the things right.
I have honestly, are you guys, and I don't mean to be offensive, but the Democrats are mad every damn day. You all are mad about something every day. This country is terrible.
Because the right wing is just so easy to get along with.
No, but seriously,
you all have Marjorie Taylor Greene out there, baby.
Don't let us tear you up that much. But I've never heard such crisis mode out of a party in my damn life. Every day, this country's terrible. Do you know how many Canada texts I've seen or posts on Facebook? They're moving to Canada. That ain't true. They're not moving to Canada. And then I know you all have seen this, the unfriend me now. Unfriend me now. I've seen that a million times. Unfriend me now.
I've seen the same thing from the Trump guys. When Biden spanked Trump's election, I've seen the same thing from the Trump guys.
You probably did back here. See, I didn't see any of that because I don't.
I'm not seeing any of that stuff
because I would actually want to just completely eat shit before I stayed in the echo chamber, like some people do. Like I guarantee some of these people who are watching only hang out with like-minded people. I don't. I challenge myself all the time. That's why I sit up here and confuse everybody on Sundays and they can't figure out what I'm doing. Oh, I'm definitely Republican. It's just I'm not so crazy Republican that I think that I have the right to tell everybody what to do all the time. And I sure ain't Democrat. So, my God, I've just never seen this crisis culture. Have you, Jimmy Don? Everybody's in a crisis.
It's all the time, which, and like I said, I think what you said is it's just political theater. But I believe it comes from both sides. Like, I think it's just political theater. I think the Republicans are as bad as
Chris,
the
if you would die, I
Democrats.
would.
Yeah, I would. Chris K. Did you see that, JD?
Yeah.
We need to unfriend Chris K. Yeah, no.
Chris, you need to go shopping at El Paso Walmart, bro.
So, Don, I want to touch on this one point. We're at an hour right now, but I do want to touch on this point because you brought it up a couple of times, multiple times, about the guys rolling this, how guys just spread their seed and then go on about their day. Mm-hmm. Right. So, but if a woman has a child, aren't men basically there's child support? If you don't pay it, you can go to jail. There's things like that in place. Like, where are you coming from on that? I have seen some really good ideas. I don't know how they would work them out. I've just seen some people float out some ideas, some really good female legislators, actually. Some have knocked up the idea. Knocked up. Did you catch that? Wow, that was funny. I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, some people have thrown out the idea of like once you have sex and you impregnate a girl, and if you consent and you say, yeah, I did have sex with her or whatever, that you go ahead and you start paying a little small fee to her, because you have to remember these women are pregnant for 40 weeks before the child support ever kicks in, but there has to be something. You've got birth control for men. You ever heard of that other than condoms? Nope. Because they started the trials, the men started complaining because they were having headaches and they were having all of these side effects. So the trials completely ended. We could have birth control for men, but we don't, because everything is ran by men and everything is determined by men. And that's why with this abortion thing,
We outnumber men in this country by a very slim margin, but we still have plenty. If we can get all these women on board, we could have access to what we need and still have that line drawn to where we protect the baby. Is it going to satisfy everybody? No. It's not going to satisfy the left. It's not going to satisfy the right. But we're never going to do that. So we're going to have to pick some type of centrist mode here, or we're going to end up constantly fighting each other. Always. Your kids are going to grow up fighting each other. Your grandkids are going to fight each other. That's not the kind of country that I want for my kids. So, I know I tick people off by playing both sides here and there, but honestly, you should too. You should never get in the camp and just sit there.
Absolutely.
No, I agree with that 100%.
And the facts are the facts. When a child's born, it just doesn't impact the father's life the way it does the mother's life. That's just the facts.
Yeah.
Especially in the culture that we've grown up in. You can pay this child support, you can do all this, but it just doesn't impact the father's life the way it does the mother's life. Because the mother, or gender role, has traditionally been the caretaker and the one who's with the children when they're not at school, and the man's generally been the breadwinner, right? And so with these roles, the impact is always going to be on the mother. Now, what can we do to offset that and make things better? I really don't know. I don't know that even forcing guys to pay child support, while she's pregnant, I don't know that'll make that big of a difference. Because my opinion is that a lot of women or young women, especially, or immature like that, they won't go out and still take care of the things they need to take care of. And that's just a fact. I mean, I'm not.
And let me say something
I'm
too.
on the side of the women, you know that.
Right.
But it's just the truth that the men just don't have the skin in the game that the women have. When a child's born, it derails their life and changes their life and impacts their life way more than it does the man. Period.
Yeah. And let me clarify something. I don't want it to sound like I'm coming off saying that women's lives are ruined. Our lives are not ruined by being mothers. The majority of us choose to be mothers. And you see, look at Vicky's comment, bring that up if you don't care. She did this all on her own because she wanted to be a mother. She's wired to be a mother. I'm the same way. I wanted my kids. This is what I wanted to be. They didn't derail me. Did I have to sacrifice things? Sure. But it's not that kids ruin our lives at all. It's just that sometimes, a lot of times we get tired and we're working and, the kid gets sick and I'm at work, but yet the dad's at work too. And when I call and I'm like, hey, can you pick them up? They're sick. He's like, no, I got to work. And then it's like, well, I'm working too. That's where we get riled up. It's like you all don't even, I'm not saying you guys, meaning you guys individually. I'm talking about collectively. Consider what your woman is doing, what the mother of your children are doing for your kids. Consider that, especially if you're married and in a relationship with them. Now, if you've knocked somebody up and you've took off and you're not fooling with her and you're not treating her well, and the kid watches this, the kid knows who his daddy is, but isn't connected with him, you're losing out. You may think that you are targeting the mother and you're hurting the mother, and you are, but you're making your kid collateral damage, and you're hurting yourself more, because one day you're going to find yourself and you're going to be 65, 70 years old, and you're going to have a strapping young son, probably in his 30s, or a daughter in her 30s with the family, and they're not going to get around you because you was never around. Did you know who they're going to get around? Their mom. Mm-hmm. So these are consequences that happen from promiscuity, and that's a lot of this abortion stuff that we're talking about is behavior that puts us in these positions. I mean, yes, we have our segment of things that happen to married women and women who are in healthy relationships, but there's a larger portion of women who are being treated poorly, and then they have to go through extreme things, and we're not talking about just damaging their bodies. You completely change the female who you're with. So, just treat us kind and respectfully. Treat us the way you'd want your daughter, if you even care about your daughter. Treat us the way you'd want your daughter to be treated. And honestly, these things wouldn't be so polarized like they are. We can work things out if people would just talk, but they don't. Just as soon as I come out and say I'm pro-life, Jimmy Don, to a pro-choicer, they call me Republican. They start diving in. Oh, this is ignorant. That's stupid. No, it's ignorant and stupid for you to say those things to me without backing anything up with fact. It's not, you're going to have to bring something to the table. You can't just up and say you're ignorant.
The same thing happens actually on the other side. If
Yeah,
I'm
it
pro-choice,
does.
I must be a baby killer.
Baby murderer,
Like,
a
I'm
baby
murderer.
murderer.
Like,
Yeah,
what are you
all of
talking
that stuff
about?
too.
You ain't know me.
And we worked hard on this podcast. We fight, and then we try to bring it back around and show that you can have civil discourse, and we can meet in the middle.
No, I've really enjoyed the debate tonight. I learned something, as far as, that I didn't know. And it's a complicated issue. JD is right in some sense that there are people in the religious community that, but that's who gets blamed. That's the easy people to blame just because of the religious affiliation. And they get blamed for a lot of things by the left just because they're Christians, and that's okay. But it's the same. It's the reverse.
Exactly right.
It's the reverse. I mean, it goes in reverse too, and that's the thing that I like about this podcast.
Right. Because we didn't even touch on Jimmy Don. Supreme Court justice is being threatened.
Yeah.
Catholic Church is being burned.
Here's what I want to ask before you guys tip off here. I know everybody thinks the Democrats will get demolished in November, but do you think this? I think this might give them new life.
I don't know. I still think they're going to get demolished, but I think it makes it a little more interesting in certain states. In a lot of states where it's conservative, no,
it don't matter, right?
It don't matter.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think no.
Georgia?
I mean, it could definitely change a few people's minds. Especially women voters. It could definitely change some people's minds. But I think in certain races, I think Richie just said that. Yeah, in certain races it'll matter. In certain, here's
the thing. Here's the thing. I don't think that anymore. I don't think Republicans are going to pick up any votes because of the rule overturning the ruling. I think Democrats will. You know what I'm saying? I think it's only going to help one party.
I just think that the driving issue, JD, is not going to be abortion. It's going to be inflation.
Yeah,
it's the economy. It always is. That's going to be the driving issue, and I think ultimately that's what will.
I think so too, because that's affecting more women than abortion is. The economy is affecting 100% of us. Abortion's affecting a small portion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're trying to feed kids and stuff. So I think that's why it's already dying down. Have you noticed that? It went crazy, and now it's already kind of dying down because the Democrats know they've got to really try to figure this inflation thing. I mean, Biden's out working on it over with some European leaders. They're trying to talk about inflation, see if they can get this down. So no, I still think it'll be the inflation. And
we had no problem going an hour on this subject, by the way.
No, I knew it wouldn't. I was like, I didn't even write down any other topics. I just did some research on I didn't even ask Don. Like normally I come on here and we'll meet up and I'll say, Don, anything you want to talk about, JD, anything you want to talk about. We didn't do that today. We were just like, okay, what are we going to talk about?
I know.
Did anything happen this week?
Yeah, anything happened this week? What are we going to talk? Who sent that text yesterday? Was that you, JD?
Yeah, that was. I was like, I don't know what you're talking
about. Yeah, that was funny. So anything else we want to touch on, guys?
No, I think we're good.
All right, good deal. All right, so we'll wrap it up here. Great discussion. And I said we were going to get into the comments, and we got so into this, I forgot. So I apologize to those of you who are watching.
There were a lot of good comments. There
were a lot of good comments. Yeah, you're right, JD. So, guys, thank you so much for coming and spending an hour or so with us here on your Sunday evening. We know you can be anywhere, and we appreciate that you're here with us. Of course, you know where to find us, all on social media. A lot of activity on the social media this week, especially on Facebook with some of the posts Don and JD are putting out. And we really, really appreciate that as well. You can find the podcast itself on iTunes, iHeart, Podbean, wherever podcasts are found, you will find Just Add Bourbon. As we always end our show, from myself, from JD, and from Don, no matter how bad your week's been, no matter how bad your day's going, if you just add bourbon, it always gets a little bit better. We'll see you guys next Sunday.